Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tiffany Welch. I'm the Program Operations Officer here at Next 50 Initiative, and I'll be moderating our conversation and Q&A session on our Advancing Innovation in Aging 2023 funding opportunity. A few housekeeping things to get us going. This session is being recorded, and it will be available on our website, so you can watch it back at a later date. Closed captioning is also available. You can turn on closed captioning by selecting the CC option at the bottom of your screen. We will be doing a Q&A session after a brief presentation. So please use the Q&A feature, which is also found on the icon at the bottom of your screen, to enter your questions. We did our best to answer a lot of the questions through our presentation that came in through the registration process. But I have two amazing program officers here, Jillian Kelly and Sydney Langer, who are going to go through a presentation, hopefully answer a lot of questions, and then we'll get into a live Q&A after the presentation. So Sydney, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Tiff. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. As Tiffany mentioned, I'm one of the program officers here at Next 50. Before we hop in to discuss our grant opportunity around advancing innovation in aging, I wanted to provide a little bit of background around Next 50 Initiative and who we are. So for those of you who may not be familiar, Next 50 Initiative is a Colorado-based private foundation that supports efforts to improve the lives of older adults and/or their caregivers. We were formed in 2016 through a sale of Innovate, a nonprofit PACE provider. While we are a completely independent nonprofit entity, we have retained the focus of serving older adult population. And so part of our formation agreement in 2016 was that 80% of our initial corpus and any associated investment income is restricted to benefit residents of Colorado, and then the remaining 20% is unrestricted.
Here you can see a graphic of our funding and investment strategy, which we have launched for the first time this year. Some of you have probably already seen this, but if you want some more detail about our overall funding and investment strategy, you can go to our website. There is a lot of information about it there. Our mission-driven strategy guides our work and provides background information about our goals, strategies, and tactics. One of the tactics being this Advancing Innovation in Aging funding opportunity.
And something that is common across all of our strategies and funding opportunities are our four overarching goals that we seek to achieve by our funding opportunities. And so you'll see our goals listed here, starting with improving the quality of life for older adults and their caregivers, strengthening organizations serving older adults, supporting new and innovative approaches to aging, and then our fourth goal is to reduce ageism.
So to help us to accomplish those goals, we have developed this funding strategy. This is our first time doing this funding opportunity, Advancing Innovation in Aging. The purpose here is to invest in new or ongoing innovative projects that seek to rethink how people age or how people think about aging. We're hoping to support project-based projects for new or existing innovative projects or initiatives aiming to better the lives of older adults. We're also interested in supporting organizations seeking to expand services into the aging space for the first time. To be eligible to apply, you'll need to be either a 501c3, 501c4, 501c6, government entity, or university.
So some of the application details and around eligibility and timing are that the application opens today and it will close on June 21st. So you have around 6 weeks to submit an application. Applications will be submitted using an online system. Later on in our presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about that online system called Flux. If you are awarded, you will be notified in mid-October, and funds will be distributed once the grant agreement has been finalized and signed across both parties. Multi-year grants are available up to 3 years. If you are interested in applying for a multi-year grant, it is required to speak with the program officer. So you can go ahead and shoot us an email and we can set up that call to do that. Additionally, there's no maximum request amount. However, if you are looking to apply for $250,000 or more, it is required to speak with the program officer as well. And then lastly, we do allow indirect cost. However, indirect cost in the project budget may not exceed 20% of the requested amount.
So we've already received a lot of questions about, so what is innovation? What does innovation mean to Next 50 initiative? And this is how we have defined innovation. Something that is innovative does not necessarily have to be new, although of course it could be. It could simply be better or different. Here we define innovation as an effort to rethink how people age, how they feel about aging, and how our society supports aging adults. There will be a question in the application about how your project is innovative, and that will be your chance to explain to us what is innovative about your project. And we're not just interested in what is innovative to us, but we'd like to hear what's innovative to you. So you'll have a chance to outline that in your application.
So while we're accepting a broad definition of innovation, there are a few things or a handful of things that will not be funded. So on the screen, you'll see a list of ineligible costs for this funding opportunity. And those include general operating support. If you're looking for a less restrictive funding, we do have another funding opportunity, advancing equity in aging. That could be a better fit for you there. We do not allow for subgrants to individuals or other organizations, LLCs, or for-profit organizations. Individual bills or payment reimbursement of individual bills will not be funded. So examples of these are medical bills, rent assistance, mortgage assistance, etc. Additionally, lobbying, political campaigns, or requests with the goal of supporting specific political positions will not be funded. Fundraising and general event sponsorships are also ineligible. And then type 3 non-functionally integrated supporting organizations are not eligible. That it would be listed on your 990 IRS form if you are confused of what that may be. And then lastly, laboratory research will not be eligible for funding in this opportunity.
So this slide goes over how we will be evaluating applications, and you can see there are 11 points here, and I'm going to touch on each one just to give you a good picture of what we're looking for and how we're planning to evaluate the applications that come in. First of all, we will be looking for the connection to older adults. And for us, this means that the project is really focused directly on older adults, which we define as 50 and older, or their caregivers qualify as well. If you are an organization that serves more than just older adults, we are looking for you to really explain how this project is focused solely on older adults, and not just that perhaps a portion of your population is older adults, but that you are truly focusing this project on the older adult community. As far as population served, applications will be strengthened if they have a focus on marginalized communities. We have a list of those on our website of what we're considering marginalized, but that includes communities of color, disabled, LGBTQ+, low income, rural, immigrant, refugee, or other marginalized communities you can define as you see fit. And then we will ask you in your application to outline your demographics of who you plan to serve with this project. And we really want to know who it is that you're serving with this project specifically, not just as an organization as a whole, or not the census data for your community, but who are you really looking to target for this project. And so you'll have a chance to put that in numerical value, but there will also be a narrative question about that where you can explain, here's the population that we're planning to serve, and here's how we're connected to that population. Next, our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to us. You'll see that we'll ask you for your non-discrimination statement, but we're looking for more than that in this question. So this is really asking about what is your commitment as an organization to diversity, equity, and inclusion? And so what we want to know here is how do you make your values in these areas real in the work that you do. And if you can provide some specific examples of how you do that, that would be ideal for us. So we're looking for more than we are open to serving everyone equally, but really looking at what is it that you're doing as an organization to live out your values and your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Next, we're looking for the clarity of your project goals and your alignment with Next 50 initiative goals. So we'll ask you to articulate what are your goals for the project, and then select one or more of the Next 50 initiative goals that you hope your goals align to. And Sydney talked about those goals in a previous slide, but you can also find those on our website. And we'll just want to know, how is it that you hope your project goals ultimately align to the Next 50 initiative goals? And then beyond that, what is your project plan and how are you hoping to accomplish these goals, and then measure your progress toward the goals as well? And how will you know if you have been successful? Along those same lines, measurement and evaluation of your identified goals. We want to know, how are you going to measure your goals? What are the objectives you have in place to make progress towards your goals? And again, how will you know if you have been successful? For innovation, as I mentioned before, we're looking for projects that meet our definition of innovation, and we will give you space to explain to us what is innovative about your project. For impact, we're looking at for you to describe how it is expected, how you are expecting to impact the aging community, and describe the impact of the project and how this project will ultimately support older adults and their caregivers. Next, for sustainability, replicability, and scalability, this is not necessarily a requirement, but it is something that will certainly strengthen your application. And we do expect this to be a competitive funding opportunity. So if you can explain, we'll have a section where you can select one, two, or three of these different elements: sustainability, replicability, and scalability, and then describe to us how you plan to accomplish these different things. We're definitely interested in seeing whether you have plans in place to sustain, replicate, or scale your project. Use of funds, we would like to know how you plan to use the funds. We will ask you for a project budget, and there will be a project narrative as well, or a budget narrative rather as well. And this is your chance to explain to us, how are you planning to use the funds? And what we want to see there is that the funding you're planning to use is clearly going to go toward helping you accomplish your goals, and then ultimately helping those goals to accomplish the goals of Next 50 initiative. So we really just want to see that clear through line of, here's how the funding is going to be used to support our goals and ultimately impact the lives of older adults. This is also going to be a chance for you. We will be looking at your organizational financials, and if there's anything that you think will be in your budget that perhaps there may be question about when we look at it, something that looks just kind of out of place or anything along those lines, in that budget narrative is your chance to explain what it is that might look out of place, so that we can know when we review your financials what we're looking at. We will be looking at the strength and capacity of your organization, and that includes the history, strength, capacity of your organization, track record with other projects, and history in the field. We will review, of course, the financial capacity of your organization, and again, give you that chance to talk about any irregularities in your financials. And then lastly, this one is fairly straightforward, but we're looking at the thoroughness and timeliness of your submission. We'll need to see all of the questions answered and the application submitted on time with all of the appropriate supporting documentation.
Great. And as Jillian mentioned in the previous slide, there are a few things that are not required in this funding opportunity, however, will definitely strengthen your application. We do anticipate that this will be a very competitive cycle, given that we have approximately $2 million to distribute alone in this funding opportunity. So the few things that will strengthen an application are opportunities or proposals that focus on the most underserved in the aging sector, which is including, but not limited to, communities of color, disabilities, LGBTQ+, low income, rural, immigrant and refugee, and other historically marginalized and or vulnerable communities. Additionally, requests are also strengthened by a clear possibility for sustainability, scalability, and or replicability. And then lastly, requests are also strengthened by additional planned or committed sources of funding.
Okay, so now we're going to open up to Q&A. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen that there is a place for questions. Please feel free to enter those. I see some are already coming in. We also have some questions that were submitted beforehand. Again, this webinar is going to be recorded and posted online. And if you do have something that is very specific to your own program or project that you're wanting to ask about, please schedule a discovery call with one of our program officers, and we'll be happy to talk with you about that individually.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jillian and Sydney. Hopefully that provided a lot of information and answers to those of you that are watching. We'll get started with a few questions that came in during the registration process, and then they've sort of trickled in through the Q&A as well. And this is around organizations that may have applied for flexible supports funding, which was an opportunity earlier this year. And the notifications have not been made yet. They'll be made in mid-June. Are they eligible to apply for innovation? And there's just some questions around the timing of all of that.
Yes. So you are more than welcome to apply for both opportunities. However, an organization will only be funded in one opportunity. The timing does make that challenging because you likely will not hear back about your flexible support grant application until after the deadline has passed for advancing innovation. And so you may need to begin your application before you've heard back, but you are more than welcome to apply for both, but will only be funded for one.
Great, thank you. Is there a max on an organization's operating budget?
No, there's not a maximum amount for an organization's operating budget. We welcome all organizations, small and large, to apply.
Wonderful. How about, are there any geographic area restrictions for this funding opportunity?
We do not fund outside of the United States, so that is the only limitation. But if you are in the United States, then and your programming is in the United States, then you're welcome to apply.
Perfect, thank you. We've got several questions coming in here around what we consider indirect costs. So will you please talk a little bit more about what might be included as an indirect cost on a budget?
Yeah, and I definitely welcome a phone call about this as well. If you are confused or want some clarity, indirect costs typically are things like rent, lighting for an organization. We do allow staffing cost to be under direct cost, so long as that staff is directly involved with the project that you are proposing. And if there are some indirect staffing costs, maybe like an IT person or the CEO that's providing oversight, that would fall under more of the indirect cost. And so direct costs are going to be costs that are directly related to the project or program that you are proposing, where indirect is more of the administrative, operational aspect of the work that you do day to day. But again, I definitely welcome a phone call if you want to talk through some of those specifics as well.
That's wonderful. And it actually kind of leads directly into another question that's getting asked is, what are we considering general operating support?
So general operating support would be supporting for your organization overall or your programming overall. And we're really looking to support project-based or to provide project-based support this time around. So you'll need to submit a specific project and project budget rather than asking for funding for your broader programming or organization. If you do need funding that is more general operating funds, then you can look at our Advancing Equity opportunity, which opens I believe next month, or at our flexible support opportunity, which has closed for this year, but will hopefully be open again in next year.
Wonderful. Okay, switching topics slightly, is it okay to partner with another organization with one agency taking the lead, but the other also receiving funding? Is that considered a subgrant?
That's a great question. And yes, that is eligible for funding. If you have a named partner, that's another nonprofit or maybe a collaborative, of partners that are named in the application, and it's defined who's doing what and who's being paid for what, that is definitely eligible. Sub grants really fall into the ineligible aspects due to not knowing who these partners are, not knowing what their work is. Maybe they're a for-profit, which would be ineligible. So if you have a named organization that would be receiving a portion of the award funding, that is okay. I would definitely also recommend a discovery call with the program officer to receive some clarity around your specific project and those partners that would be receiving funding as well.
Wonderful. And just to dig in a tiny bit more on that, could a subcontract or an LLC for-profit company be eligible? Not to apply, but as a partner within the grant.
No, we do not fund LLCs and sub-grants. If you want to talk more about your specific situation, again, give us a call to make sure that we fully understand what it is that you're proposing.
Perfect. How many grants do you expect to award?
We have about $2 million in this funding pool. And so the amount of grants would depend on the ask amount and the awarded amount. So we don't have a specific number of the quantity of organizations that will be funded, but we do have about $2 million in funds to distribute. And we do anticipate that this will be a very competitive process and strongly encourage folks to reach out to discuss what an appropriate funding amount or an ask amount would be.
Great, thank you. If an organization's project requires them to hire a project manager or clerical staff as part of the project, are those considered operational expenses, or how should those be accounted for in a budget?
Those would be direct expenses since they are directly in support of the project.
Wonderful. Are national or nationwide projects considered and evaluated differently than Colorado-specific projects?
No, national projects and national organizations will be evaluated in the same way that all applications and organizations will be evaluated.
Wonderful. Is there a minimum match requirement?
No, we do not have any kind of match requirement.
Okay, and then here's a question around the strengthening of applications. Just to reiterate a little bit about sustainability, replicability, and what was the third one?
Scalability.
Yeah, scalability. Okay, thank you. And again, the slides will be available with the recording on our website for later. I know that sometimes we went through those a little bit quickly. Could you please provide information on non-Colorado based organizations and the likelihood of being funded?
So this grant opportunity has no geographic restrictions beyond, again, it has to be a US organization. So non-Colorado based organizations will be evaluated the same way that Colorado based organizations will be. So again, we'll use that criteria, and the geography of the state is not necessarily taken into consideration.
Okay. And then sort of along those lines, we're getting some questions about Colorado versus outside of Colorado as far as the percentages, because, you know, if national organizations are evaluated differently, or if there's a certain proportion of grants that will go to nationwide organizations or outside of Colorado organizations.
No, so I know we have this 80-20 split that I know sometimes makes folks nervous, but just for you to know that for this funding opportunity, we don't look at that 80-20 per each funding opportunity. And so there shouldn't be a deterrent for you as an out-of-state organization to apply. Perfect.
Okay, so if there's a new nonprofit organization that has just started, how can they show their what do they need to exhibit in order to let us know sort of they don't have the track record or the history to show their capacity and strength of the organization? What can they share with us so that we understand for a new organization?
Yeah, there's definitely some different opportunities for new organizations. I definitely recommend a specific discovery call with the program officer to see how to strengthen that. But I would recommend demonstrating what you have done in the year or less that you have been established as an organization, and why you were even established to begin with, and what is the purpose of your organization, and really, again, connecting to our goals. And then leading into what you're proposing for the specific project and innovation, and how you will know that if you're successful, and how you will evaluate said success. Additionally, there are some financial requirements that we ask for all organizations. New organizations likely will not have an audit. If you do have an audit, then great, you can ignore this. But newer organizations likely do not have their own audit, and therefore will be limited to $30,000. And so definitely double check the application requirements and what we ask financially of all organizations to submit. And if you do not have certain documents like an audit, then that would limit you in the amount that you'd be able to ask for. And we're available to answer any questions specifically around what those requirements look like as well.
Thank you. Can existing staff positions be included in the project budget if they are working on this specific project? Or is it only new staff?
No, absolutely. Existing staff can be included, and if they're working on this project, then that can be part of the direct project costs.
Considering Next 50 initiatives focus on marginalized communities, do applications that do not focus on those communities have a chance?
Yes, the application does not require you to focus on historically marginalized communities that we have listed. It does strengthen an application, and so that is taken into consideration. This will be an extremely competitive cycle, and so we would really recommend, again, calling us to see how you can strengthen your application, maybe in other ways. If you do not focus on some of those populations, I would definitely still encourage you to apply if you fit in our innovation funding opportunity. And so it will not preclude you from funding, but population served is definitely taken into consideration as we are reviewing.
Thank you. This is another question here about the application. Now that changing the narrative is part of Next 50 initiatives campaign, how do we want to see proposals exhibiting the reframing aging principles?
Oh, what a great question. I would recommend actually that you go to our website. I believe, did we post this? Yeah, we posted recently a webinar or a video about this exact question on our website. So you can go and take a look at that, and also go to the Changing the Narrative website. But on our website, there are lots of resources that you can use to take a look at that and learn more.
Will you be requesting letters of support from partner organizations?
No, that is not required for if you do have multiple partner organizations. However, that could definitely strengthen your application if you do have letters of support, or even an MOU if it is an established relationship. So if that's something that's a part of your proposal, I definitely recommend including that, but not required.
Thank you. Will this funding opportunity be available again next year, or is it only this year?
Our funding and investment strategy is planned to last over the next several years. And so we don't have the specifics of exactly what will be open next year, but we hope to continue these funding opportunities, and we'll certainly keep you posted on that as soon as we have more information.
And kind of continuing in the same line here, how was this specific funding opportunity born? What led Next 50 initiative to identify innovation as a separate grant opportunity?
That's a great question as well. So in our funding and investment strategy, you'll see that we have different tactics and strategies for how we want to achieve our goal. This year in 2023, we have identified 3 grant disbursement opportunities that we hope to accomplish. This being our second one, the innovation grant, and that was born out of a committee through internal staff and board members of Next 50, as well as input from the community, whether that was previous grantees, current grantees, and other feedback from community partners of how Next 50 can best position ourselves as a strategic partner in the aging space. And so our funding opportunities that we've identified this year and for the upcoming several years really come out of a collaborative process with staff, board, and community input, thus creating our innovation grant opportunity this year.
Thanks, Sydney. Can organizations apply for both advancing innovation and advancing equity grant opportunities?
Yes, you can apply for both opportunities, but again, you can only be funded in one opportunity.
Wonderful. And this is another one about repeat applicants. If there's a division for a national nonprofit, can they apply multiple times and be eligible to receive funding in those different entities or different locations?
Yeah, definitely give us a call to discuss some specifics, but yes, the broad answer is yes. For example, we know that Alzheimer's Association is a large organization that has different entities in several states, and those different entities in different locations would be eligible to apply and theoretically could be awarded in several different locations. And so if you have any confusion, or if you want to talk about the specifics of your organization in the national branch or the smaller entities or different locations, give us a call and we can provide feedback as well there.
If an organization has an active grant with Next 50 initiative that is about to be wrapping up, are they eligible to apply for a continuation of that project?
Yes, as long as it fits with the advancing innovation opportunity in all aspects, then yes, there is no requirement around having closed out previous grants. If you have a current active grant, you are welcome to apply.
Wonderful. And then if an organization requests multi-year grant, are they then eligible to also apply for other opportunities?
If they are awarded in innovation, they would, and it's a multi-year, then they would be ineligible for these other funding opportunities. And again, if it's a one-year innovation grant, then that would open up opportunities for funding in different grants in the subsequent years. But for multi-year, I would say if you receive funding, then you would be ineligible for other funding opportunities, so long as your grant is over the course of 1 up to 3 years. Was that clear? Should I?
It makes sense to me. But again, we can dig into that more if we need to in a phone call. Can you talk a little bit more about the financial review that's required for agencies that don't have an audit and the maximum request amount for organizations that don't have an audit?
Yes, so if your organizational budget is 500,000 or less, then you are not required to submit an audit. But if your organization wants to request more than $30,000 in funding, then you're either required to have, I'm sorry, let me say this again. If your organization wants to request more than $30,000, you are required to have an audit. However, if your organization has an operating budget of $500,000 or less and wants to request over $30,000, then you can submit a financial compilation or financial review in place of an audit. Those are still third-party reviews that need to come from someone else, but that would work if your organizational budget is under 500,000 and you want to request more than $30,000. If you are requesting less than $30,000, you're not required to submit an audit or any of those other things. I hope that made sense. It's also on our website. Go there to double check.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that, Jillian.
Yeah.
If an organization is partnering with other organizations for a project, do we require financial or other documentations for those partners as well as the applying organization?
No, we would only require the financial documents for the lead applicant and the applicant that would be receiving the funds. The partners would need to be named so we can understand where the funds are going to, but we'd only require the financial documents from the lead applicant.
Perfect. And this is another question about partners. So if there are named partners in the project, are we asking for MOUs from those other partners?
I believe we would like to see MOUs or letters of support from those other organizations.
Will a project that works across several states be accepted?
Yeah, we would definitely allow for partners that are either national or working in several distinct states to be eligible for this funding. So that would definitely be welcomed as well.
Okay, here's a somewhat tricky question around the timing of our funding opportunities, given the overlap between pending flexible support and the advancing innovation in aging. Can you talk a little bit about why things have been timed out the way they are?
Oh, that is a complicated question, and it all involves our processes, which include board oversight of our recommendations for funding. And so we have a need to have our board obviously approve all of the funding that we pass through, and the timing of those meetings factors in. It's really kind of a complicated formula that comes into play that determines how much time folks have for submitting their applications, how much time we have for reviewing applications based on the volume that we get, and then also having those all approved by our board of directors. And so it's really a pretty complicated process that goes into figuring out all of that timing. And I know it's not ideal to not know whether you've received one award before you apply for another one, but based on the timing of things this year, that's how that one had to work out.
Thanks for going into that, Jillian. We have a question here to repeat the amount that we have available for this funding opportunity.
Yes, we have upwards of $2 million for this funding opportunity this year.
And again, are we prioritizing Colorado over other areas within the country?
No, for this opportunity, we are not.
Are contractors allowed as an expense?
Yes, and so contractors, whether that's a contractor or a subcontractor that's directly involved with the project that's being proposed, that could be considered a direct expense, so long as that contractor is directly involved with the proposed project.
And another expense item, what about capital expenses?
You can apply for capital expenses, and you'll just need to again explain the innovation and all of the other questions involved with that, but we are not excluding capital requests.
Okay. Okay, again, and here's another sort of clarification. If IT or infrastructure is part of the project's ultimate implementation, is that an eligible project expense?
I would definitely recommend reaching out for us to understand what the proposed project is. I could see a possibility of IT being extremely direct. However, we have initially said IT or some of those overhead costs or administrative costs to be indirect. If your project is solely focused on some aspect of technology where the IT person would be the direct person involved on your staff, we can definitely talk about that. So for this one, I would definitely recommend reaching out for a discovery call so we can understand the full scope of work and make sure that we are steering you in the right direction regarding your budget.
And another budget question, we do require the project budget be within the application, but do all specific indirect costs need to be listed individually, or is there an indirect cost budget line item? How would you like to see the budgets?
This is kind of up to you. We're not going to be providing a specific template with our own specific line items. So you're welcome to use whatever format works best for you. You can include your indirect expenses in one line, or you can break those out according to what makes the most sense to you. And we can take a look at it either way.
Thank you. Will Next 50 Initiative staff be available to answer questions throughout the application period?
Yes, you can reach out during the application period. Again, the application will close on June 21st. And we are available to answer questions via email. We'll post our general info email in the presentation after the Q&A portion for you all to have. Also, you're welcome to give our office a phone call to set up a call with any of the program officers if you want to discuss your specific proposed project or ask any additional questions that we may not cover here today.
Thank you. Here's a question about the total amount we have available to distribute for this opportunity. Of the $2 million, is that for the next 3 years or per year?
For this year, we have 2 million. So for year one of this advancing innovation opportunity, it is 2 million. I don't know what the budget exactly will be for the next 2 years, but don't let that deter you from applying for a multi-year. And yeah, the 2 million is for 2023.
Thank you. A few questions around research and laboratory research. Will we fund strictly research, or are we looking for programs? And also a question to kind of expand on what we mean by laboratory research.
Yeah, I may have Jillian hop in here as well. So we're not solely looking at programs. Programs are definitely included. Projects are included. Capital requests are included. Viability studies could be included, whether programs should even exist. Laboratory research is something very specific that could be conducted in a lab, whether it's disease specific, like Alzheimer's, dementia. That research will be excluded. We've gotten several calls about aging research in general, and taking multi-years for funding for that research. And so we have decided to not include that type of research at all. If you have something that you feel is a gray area, whether it's research or viability or a needs assessment, please reach out to us. But what we're really referring to is specific laboratory research that could be disease specific, it could be aging related research. And so again, if there's any gray area and you're so confused, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. In the application, do you have to show the sustainability for the future of the program and the staff that might be associated?
You do not have to, but we will ask this question. We'll ask about sustainability, replicability, and scalability. You can choose which, if any, or all of those are things that you plan to do, and then we'll have you outline for us how you plan to do that. So if you do plan to sustain your project, then we would love to hear about that. And it will strengthen your application. However, if you do not have plans for sustainability, you are still welcome to apply.
Thank you. Can this funding be considered as a match for federal programs such as AmeriCorps Senior?
Our funding could be used as a match if you are required with a state or federal grant or another funding opportunity or from another foundation that requires a match. This could be considered, or this would be welcome to be that match for you all.
Going back again to some sub-granting questions. If say, for example, a university wanted to make mini grants available to students or faculty to give seed money for innovative or new programming, would that be considered a sub-grant?
Yes, that would be considered a sub-grant and would not be eligible for funding.
Thank you. For national projects, are we interested in seeing a percentage of engagement among Colorado organizations?
If that's a factor in the proposed project of X amount will go to this state or to that state, and that's how you are defining and measuring success, and that's how you're evaluating your work, then great, please include that. But that's not required that a certain percentage needs to be focused in Colorado. We really welcome all organizations across the nation to apply.
Perfect. For projects that engage collaborators, how much detail do you desire about the population of older adults they serve?
What we're really interested in is the population that this project will serve, that you are applying for with this grant. So specifically, what is this funding going to be used for in terms of your project? And if you have collaborators in that project, then again, what we're looking for is who will be accessing this project. And so to think about whether that is from your organization or another organization or a combination of the two, we're not looking for the broad demographics of who the organization serves, but rather who will ultimately benefit from the project that you are proposing in this grant application.
Is an outcome evaluation an allowable expense for the project?
Yes, so evaluation that's specific to this project is an allowable expense.
And then a question about audits, the timing of audits. Does the audit need to be for 2022?
No, audits need to be dated December 31st, 2020 or later.
Are there any word or character limits required in the narrative of the application?
No, there are no word or character limits included in our application.
Okay, can you apply for a 3-year grant and single project budget grants?
I'm not sure I understand that question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Maybe Sydney does.
Yeah,
I'm
just
not.
read it.
We'll
Maybe
follow up with that.
Yeah, either reword or give us a call. Maybe, I'm sorry, I don't totally understand.
Okay, so we say organizations may submit only one application for advancing innovation unless the organization can clearly demonstrate multiple or distinct locations. So for a large university, can they apply for multiple locations, or do they need to run an internal nomination process first?
All right. They can apply for multiple locations.
Perfect. Some of these we've already answered. I'm trying to weed through them. Okay. Is this a diversity grant?
This grant does not have the specific focus of diversity in terms of that needs to be included in your outcomes and be the crux of your application. However, as we mentioned, applications are strengthened if you are focusing on a population that belongs to one or more historically marginalized groups of older adults. And we have listed those out on our website of what we focus on in terms of historically marginalized communities. But that does not need to be the main focus of your application. However, it definitely does strengthen it.
Can an application cover 2 different projects, or should they be submitted separately?
I would recommend having a phone call for that, a discovery call with one of our program officers so we can talk through the details of that. We're really looking for project-based applications that outline, what you're hoping to accomplish with a project. And it may be difficult to add more than one project into that, but I would definitely recommend a phone call.
Okay, and this is a question about our grant agreement. How do we determine if we will or will not exercise expenditure responsibility?
Yeah, if you are unsure, reach out to us. Typically, the best examples of organizations that are fit into expenditure responsibility are universities and government entities. There may be some others that require expenditure responsibility. So if you're unsure, feel free to reach out. But typically speaking, nonprofit 501c3s do not require expenditure responsibility. Government and universities do.
Okay, great. How many applications do you anticipate receiving?
Oh, that's such a great question. We had over 300 registrants for this call. And so I don't know if that gives you any kind of number, but we really don't know. And we'll see what it is that we get for our flexible support opportunity earlier this year. It's around 230. So, and that was Colorado based only. So we don't have a good answer for that. And yet we will see.
Okay, will matching funds strengthen an application?
Matching funds could be classified as secured other funding. And so if you do have committed or secured or even planned other funding sources, like a match, that could strengthen your application. Again, it's not required, but other secured or planned funding definitely does strengthen an application.
We've been getting a lot of questions around the advancing innovation in aging opportunity versus the advancing equity in aging opportunity. So could you talk a little bit about what the differences are between these two opportunities, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to. And I also want to point you to our website where we do have a webinar posted that goes into the differences between the opportunities and helps you determine which of these opportunities might be best for you. We're also happy to have a discovery call to talk one-on-one with you and help you figure out which might be the best for you. This advancing innovation opportunity is project-based support for innovative ideas. And so we do have more requirements around budgets and project details and things like that. Whereas with the advancing equity opportunity, it's more of there's more of an option there for general funding and general operating support. However, the requirement with that funding opportunity will be that your grant focuses on 2 or more marginalized communities. And you can get more information about that on our website. We'll also have a webinar specific to that grant opportunity coming up closer to the time of its launch. But that's the primary difference in advancing innovation. Applications are strengthened by that commitment to those populations and to DEI, as we have mentioned, but it is not required. However, the project details are much more specific. With advancing equity, you are required to focus on marginalized communities, and it's more broad programmatic support.
Thank you. How does Next 50 initiative define the word project? What if they're requesting funding for like the goal of their whole organization? Their whole organization is doing this specific work that could be innovative with older adults.
I definitely recommend reaching out. While this is a project-based support grant, we do allow for ongoing programming. And so if you have an innovative program that you've been doing for a while and hope to continue to do, you can definitely apply for funding in this. We would definitely welcome and really strongly encourage a call if you're trying to use this for your entire operation. That sounds to me like a little bit more of the general operating support, which we would not be funding. But if you're looking for specific programs that already exist, please reach out. As Jillian mentioned with the multi-project application piece, we're really looking for either a specific project that you have or want to start, or a specific program. And so the general operating for the organization in its entirety likely would not be a fit. But if there's some nuances there, please reach out and we're happy to chat with you more about that.
Thank you. We have several questions that are still out there. I think there are a lot of repeats, so hopefully they've been answered. We have about 2 more minutes. I'll get through a couple more questions. If an organization is planning to leverage a tool created by another entity, for example, changing the narratives tools, do they need their explicit permission to do so?
Oh, that's a great question. And it really depends on that organization and whether their tools are copyrighted and so on and so forth. And so I would encourage you to, certainly you can reach out to us for a discovery call, but also look into the organization whose tool you're planning to use and what kind of copyright restrictions they have and what their process is like.
Thank you. Can you speak to the significance of having a robust data and outcomes of an existing program, or could this be part of a funding request?
That's a great question, and that could be part of a funding request. You could either have a very robust evaluation, or a part of your grant project could be to start evaluating something that you believe is innovative and start or really expand that evaluative process. And so it's not required that you have a very robust evaluative process, we definitely ask about it. And that could be answered in a way of here's what we are doing, or it could be answered in a way of here's what we hope to do. And some of these funds will help us achieve that or start that. So there's no requirement that you necessarily have to have a robust evaluative system in place.
Thank you. We'll see how quickly this one goes. It might be the last question. Can you delve a little bit more into how Next 50 initiative defines innovative or innovation, given that it's subjectivity?
Yes, and there's a slide about this in the deck that we went through today, and so you can refer to that after the fact as well. But we are defining innovative as an effort to rethink how people age, how they feel about aging, and how our society supports aging adults. Innovation may be something new, but it doesn't have to be something new. It can simply be something better or different. And we're not only interested in what we look at as innovative, but what is innovative for your organization and your community. So you will have a chance in the application to outline what that looks like for you and how this project is innovative for your organization.
Wonderful. We'll do one more. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we close out the session, but does scheduling a discovery call increase an organization's chances of being awarded a grant?
Not necessarily. I definitely think it provides organizations with the tools to really have a conversation with the Next 50 initiative staff members so they can understand and receive some feedback on the application. It's not required to have a discovery call unless you are requesting for multi-year or $250,000 or more. But I definitely recommend it to see how you may be able to strengthen an application, or if you're interested in getting some more clarity around the project that you're looking for funding for. And so again, not required in most scenarios, but it could definitely be a help. And we really hope to use discovery calls to help organizations submit the strongest application possible.
Wonderful, thank you. We have several other questions here that hopefully will get answered as Sydney and Jillian do the final couple slides of our presentation, meaning how do we find the application, when is it open, and how to schedule discovery calls. So I'll turn it back over to you all. Thank you all. And I know we didn't get to everybody's questions, but hopefully we got through several of them, and we are available to help after this session as well.
Thank you, Tiff. So as we mentioned earlier, we have transitioned to a new grant portal, which is titled Flux, and we have launched our funding opportunity today. So you can go in and register in Flux, which is linked on our website. It's also linked right here in our slide. As we mentioned, we will be sending these slides out afterwards. You can directly click on this link to register. The application again closes June 21st at 5 p.m. Hopefully this new grants management system is more user-friendly and a streamlined experience for applicants and partners. All new grant applications and future reporting requirements must be submitted through this new grant portal. We will no longer be accepting applications in our old system. And again, we have our staff able to answer any questions around Flux. Make sure that you're able to register and submit an application on Flux. And so please reach out if you have any questions around our new grant management system or have any challenges entering or accessing that.
And so finally, for our next steps, what we recommend is going to our website and doing a deep dive there to look into our guidelines, our online application and tip sheets, and also make note that Spanish applications will be available soon. So keep checking back onto our website if you're interested in a Spanish application that will be coming available. If you haven't already, again, I know we've said this many times, but please do schedule a discovery call with us so we can answer any specific questions you might have and talk through your specific scenario with you. You'll see here on the screen that we have our phone number listed, as well as our general email address. So feel free to reach out to either of those. And those are, of course, listed on our website as well. Before applying, as Sydney mentioned, please go to the Flux portal and create an account for yourself so that you can access the application there. And in the meantime, on our website, you will see a link for a Microsoft Word version of the application that you can use. I know a lot of organizations like to use that to type out their answers and then sort of copy and paste into the web portal to keep things as simple as possible. So take a look at our website and you will find all of those different resources there. And after this call, we will also send out not only this slideshow, but also several other resources for you to utilize.
Great. Thank you all very much for your time today and your questions. As Jillian mentioned, please reach out if any of your questions were not answered and or if you want to talk to us more about your specific proposed idea. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day and a great week.